with a special concern for the poor, with a building of solidarity that's a network among people, with a principle that says decisions should be made by the people those who have been affected by the decision, the closest level possible. A respect for the integrity of creation. These are the norms, the values. That's what they are. But whence? Where did they come from? Well, they come from the scriptures, obviously, first and foremost. At least if they're Catholic social thought. We're a Bible church, so we've got to find that in the scripture. They come from theologians who reflect on those things, whether all the way back to the days of Augustine, the great African theologian, through the Middle Ages, through the contemporary times. We're helped a lot from the social teaching, the social thought of the church by liberation theologians in South America, by European political theologians, by African theologians who reflect on the relationship between culture and society, by feminist theologians who open our eyes to things that were missed in the scripture and in the tradition because they were only read through men's eyes. We focus a lot on the fathers of the church. Have you heard that expression? There were mothers of the church too, but they didn't get their books published. The theologians help us as a source, the whither, the whence. And of course, the documents. And we have a strong tradition in the past 120 years or so now of good documents coming from high levels of popes, consuls, synods, regional levels, national levels, diocesan levels, kind of formal articulation of how the Spirit is moving in the community. Zambia is very privileged. We have a powerful group of bishops, very close to the people, and they put out very good statements. Very good statements. Just last Friday, I was looking at the email. They put out a strong challenge, all the bishops, to the president who is dragging his feet on the constitutional reform, basing it on the values of the social teaching. People have a right to participate in the fundamental law of the land formation. So that's whence. But then the values, whither? Where did they go? Well, what kind of consequence do they have? This is a lecture series on social thought, so you're getting my lecture that I give back in Zambia on social teaching. I think it's important to see that these values do three things that are very necessary when we're dealing with public policy. They clarify issues, they motivate people, and they sustain us in the struggle. They clarify issues. They help us understand things better. They throw a new light. The question of debt is not just an economic issue. It's an ethical issue. What does community mean? That's why it could be in the Jubilee themes of the Scripture. The question of age is not just a medical question. It's not just a question of condoms, ethical issue. It's a question of what do we think of the dignity of the human person? And how do we relate to that? So, the social teaching clarifies the issues. One of the things it does, it gives us better priorities. It helps us understand that, it's important to pay attention to women, to pay attention to the poor, to work for poverty eradication, to pay attention to education. It helps in priority. So it clarifies. The social teaching, I think, brings some clarification to issues, the public policy issues. I think, secondly, it motivates. It kind of gives us a kick to stay with it, to get with it, to work to change things that can be changed. Poverty is not a natural law. It's not a norm. It was designed by you, me, by our political structure, by the way we voted. Maybe you voted against poverty. Maybe the United States voted against world poverty by putting the current man in power. I hope so. Poverty is a human design. So we need to be motivated to deal with that. I think the social teaching, by speaking about basic values, motivates us. Teaches that we're brothers and sisters. We have a future. I know it does with our own staff, the young Zambians that I work with. I'm really excited about some of these things. But the last thing that it does is it sustains. And that's very important. It keeps us for the long haul. You know, all the problems aren't going to be solved right away. AIDS is going to go on some. Public policy there's going to be successes and there's going to be failures. We supported very much, began in the mid-1990s, Jubilee 2000, cancel the debt by the year 2000. But it didn't get canceled. Tony Blair just a couple of weeks ago, launched in the G8 a focus on cancel the debt in the year 2005. But we have to be sustained. Nelson Mandela, speaking at the occasion of the gathering of the finance ministers of the G7, said, we have a campaign now to make poverty history. We made slavery history. We made apartheid history. Let's make poverty history. We need to be sustained in the struggle. I think the social teaching does that. Clarifies, gives us some better priorities, motivates, gets us in it, and sustains, helps sustain it. It does offer a phrase we use quite a lot in the public policy debate. Our center is very much involved in these public policy issues. It gives us something we call a value-added dimension to the policy debates and discussions. A value-added dimension. Certainly that's needed in the United States. Certainly it's been contributed to in the United States. It's needed in Zambia. It's needed in Africa. In the interchange with government, that we say, we're not just dealing with economic problems, we're dealing with people. That budget should reflect what's happening to people. It strengthens civil society. The values strengthen civil society. Help us cooperate with each other. And it strengthens the church. Gives the church some kind of credibility. Sometimes the church can be incredible, but I think if we spoke more about these kinds of values and exemplify them, pretty tough to talk about the values of gender equality if you don't exemplify it in your own organization. So we have to exemplify it a little bit better. We have an organization that was formed a few years ago called AFCAST, A-F-C-A-S-T, the African Forum for Catholic Social Teaching. And it's basically a coalition or a body, a network of us who are working in Southern Africa and Eastern Africa on these social teaching issues. And we meet and we prepare papers and we help training programs for seminarians or for schools on the value-added dimension to discussions of poverty, discussions of corruption, discussions of church-state relationships, public policy issues. So, let me conclude with the challenge. I do that because I'm simply not an academic. I'm an activist. I'm an advocate. And my advocacy comes from the values of social teaching. So I sort of ask you some questions. How do you feel about Africa? And I list some of these things. The New York Times today has an article which I was going to give another figure, but they give an even more interesting figure. It says that these latest fossils that were found in lower Ethiopia and the Sudan on the first human beings may date back as long as 180,000, 190,000 years. Sometimes it said 70,000 years. The basic theme is we are all Africans. We're all descended from, whether they were named Adam and Eve or whatever they were named,